Hi, my name is Jacobi, and I think the future of filmmaking is transparency.
Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Tools for Time Traveling, the podcast equipping creatives to build the future. Today, I'm Gavin Guidry, creative director, sometimes content creator. Des, what's up?
You forgot to say sometimes interior designer.
Oh, no, in progress.
Hey, what's up, y'all? I'm Desmond, strategic foresight practitioner, strategist, consultant, whatever the day calls for is what I'm doing. But today, it's not about us, it's about our guest. We are talking with creative director Jacobi Mehringer. He is also the founder of Eye Candy, which is one of my favorite accounts on Instagram right now, but it's so much more than what he's got going on Instagram. So Jacobi, it's great to have you on the show today.
Thank you.
Awesome. I mean, we're super excited to get into this. I think we both have like shared experience in advertising and making spots, making content that people actually want to see. Desmond, the same from like more of a marketing standpoint. So you saying that the future of filmmaking is transparency. I identify with that as someone who I felt like it was hard for me to break into the creative industries I'm in. So before we get into exactly what that means, I'm sure people are very interested. Could you just tell us a little bit more about you, your background, and what really like makes you the expert and gives you the ability to make that statement?
Yeah, it's funny I get asked that a lot. Like the expert question. Far from an expert. I think the fun thing about Eye Candy is any art director could have created it. If you talk to any art director in advertising and music video and filmmaking, they have their own version of Eye Candy. Like everybody, there are a million Eye Candies out there. They're just personal. Like, you'll find a clip, you'll go to the movies on the weekend, you'll see the latest Tarantino clip or a Brian De Palma clip, and you'll go, oh, that's great. I'm going to keep that. I'm going to, put that in my personal collection. So everybody has an Eye Candy. It's just, that we just happen to make it public. And so I don't know if I'm any more, expert than anybody else. In fact, a little trade secret, some of the techniques that are on Eye Candy, I just made up the names. A technique name didn't exist, and it's been kind of crazy seeing, some of those names I made up like being used in like vernacular. But
That's awesome.
I think the cool thing about Eye Candy is it's not run by experts. I think if it was run by experts, it's messy. I mean, there's typos, there's it looks like a 90s website. I love that, by the way. It's like a middle finger to like my professional as art director. I kind of just like having this retro, like don't give a fuck vibe. I'm open about the fact that some of the techniques are made up. I think that if Eye Candy was, created by experts, it'd have a different vibe, and I don't think it would have done as well as it's done.
Yeah, and awesome. For the folks that are just tuning in, may not be aware of your background or even Eye Candy, can you explain a little bit more about what exactly the platform is?
Yeah, you could ask me tomorrow and it'd probably be a different answer. But as of today, I would refer to it as a filmmaking community or a filmmaking platform. Basically, and it's funny, it started out as my personal collection of references. When you're in a creative industry, any reference could be the difference between selling a project, whether you're selling it to a director or a client or your teammate. And so Eye Candy, and it's expanded a bit from this original notion, but was just literally my technique library on a public server. And maybe it was 100 references and really small, and then today, if you were to ask me, it's like, well, fuck, dude, I don't know. It's like it's got an Instagram that is almost like a staff pick page where like directors will hit me up and oh, can you feature this? Can you show this? Like, I love it. Wow. And that's amazing because in the early days of Eye Candy, it was a lot of me scouring the internet, and now it's now I've got an amazing social team that helps me like curate the DMs, and we get like 1,800 sometimes, probably the most 1,800 a day, just DMs of just content creators and young creatives, and the problem is you want to just like glaze through them, but like you will get some amazing diamonds in the rough of a director that's 20 that has no followers, And I think that's what iCandy is all about, and why I call it a platform is because it's all about helping people grow and yes, like there's established directors that maybe don't need iCandy, but I love when there's a young director that has used the site for inspiration. They've seen a clip they like, they want to emulate it themselves. They have 300 followers, and then suddenly they get put on the iCandy Instagram account, and it helps grow their followers. That's like that's the big, cause and reason for iCandy to exist.
Awesome.
Excellent. Yeah,
I think that's a perfect segue in talking to a little bit about your statement. The future of filmmaking is transparency. What exactly do you mean by that?
Yeah, I mean, man, creativity is still under wraps. It's like a walled garden because everyone has it a bit backwards, and they think the execution is what you need to hold on to. And they copied me. Like, man, when the first shot of Vertigo and the dolly zoom was essentially created in that movie, the next artist that would have used it would have just been stealing. But if you think about the dolly zoom today, that's not owned by an artist. That's a community thing. Or the split diopter, Brian De Palma, or the quick cuts with Edgar Wright, the tableau shot with Wes Anderson. Like, there's all these shots that directors have kind of owned, but they're not owned by them. And I think iCandy is all about saying, and what I mean by the future filmmaking is transparency is like, open your brain a little bit. You don't need to be competitive with the execution. The thing that you should be competitive with is the concept. And I think that when you open up the gates to executions, which is all iCandy is, right? It's visual technique library. I think when you open up the gates to those executions and how people bring them to life, it forces people to be more tough on the ideas. Okay, well, if we're now showing people how the secret sauce, the behind the scenes curtain of how this is made, I'm going to need to be really, really tough on this concept. And by the way, we're not some iCandy is not some saint patron of transparency. Like, I rode the train. I would say like 10 years ago, a director would never show who edited it, who colored it. They would never show the storyboards. They would never show and then today, every director's doing it, save a few. Brands are starting to do that. And there's this real sense of community when you're seeing, because, everybody looks at the big names and they're like, oh my God, how the fuck did you do that? And 10 years ago, that was never answered. You went to your deathbed going, well, how the fuck did they do that, croak? Like, and now it's like the directors are like, no, here are the 50 people that worked on it. Here are the storyboards. The artists that are like 20 are like, what's a storyboard? There's just so many things that are being explained that are helping out, and I love that. And we're not the ones leading the way on that by any means. We're kind of following the gravy train. But that's like what we're all about. And I think that, when you are transparent, it creates a sense of community. And when you have a sense of community, it's kind of like a mantra I've always tried to live by is like lift as you rise. And it's like, I think that that's kind of this mindset of the filmmaking community right now, that it's, going to this space of like, here's what we did, holy shit, and guess what? Here's how we did it. How can I help you? It's really cool.
Yeah. So I'm glad you mentioned that, where you're saying like you're not the only ones doing this, because like, based on this conversation, based on my observations, like you really are out there as like on the vanguard, right? Of like really pushing this concept forward with your platform. But who are the other folks out there, or what are the signals that are happening today that make you feel like filmmaking is moving toward complete transparency?
I think self-confidence is a big one. What's it called when you like wake up every day like not think you can do your job? There's a term for that. I have that every day.
Imposter syndrome?
Yeah, it's like, I think that people are getting confident. I think because when people are transparent, they're not just transparent of the storyboards and all that. They're also like, oh man, let me tell you about how hard this was, or let me tell you about the fact that it rained on the shoot day and we had to pivot to this, or let me tell you. So it's like, there's this air of perfection when you look at like a finished video, and then you guys know when you're on a project, half the time all you can think about when you see it is what went wrong and what it could have been, and then you show it to someone for the first time and they go, nothing went wrong. That's amazing.
Yeah,
How did you do that? And you're like, man, I'm it's refreshing because like in my head I'm like, what went right? But I think that in doing that, it's making people feel more self confident, and just it's a virtuous thing to do. It's like yesterday, one of my buds and amazing director Paul Trillo, like he posted he had this incredible AI film he made, Vimeo staff pick, like did really well. How the fuck do you make that, Paul? And then all of a sudden yesterday I saw he posted the storyboard. It was like a stacked video storyboard film. Holy smokes, the comments, like it was just, that's so cool. How did you do that? What's a storyboard? Who's your storyboard art? It's amazing. People aren't just like saying, look at me, I'm amazing. They're saying, here's what I did and let me help you get there, which is really cool.
Yeah, Paul Trillo. I love Paul Trillo, by the way. Definitely have a lot of his stuff saved in my own, like you said, in my own personal eye candy, right?
Yeah. Paul Trillo sponsored this podcast today.
Yeah, there we go. Friend of the pod, Paul Trillo. Karen X Chang, I think another person on Instagram specifically, who does such a great job at like you're saying, being transparent, and showing people like what they've been able to do, because what I'm like holding on to that you said is because it's not about the execution, it's about the concepting, or the concept, which I think is really important, and not holding on and sort of like gatekeeping, which I know is like something that you are sort of like, you're the one, you're sort of like, you're breaking the gates down, right? With eye candy. I know that you have almost like a personal vendetta, right? against gatekeeping. And so I'm curious, like how, like for creators, whether they be, folks like you in the advertising industry, whether they be aspiring filmmakers, content creators, how is this concept of transparency something that could be game changing? Like what are the direct results of this?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think that as we're seeing more and more filmmakers be transparent, which sounds like such a fluff thing to say, like, oh, transparency, but I think what you're seeing is, because of that, you're seeing a lot more confidence from younger people to go out and just try things. Whether it's transparency of things you fucked up with, like, oh man, we got on set and half the shots, the lens cover was covered halfway on, and we just went with that, and like, so like fuck ups are helpful to know. And then, but the big picture thing is, learning how to do things. It's amazing what a 20-year-old with spare time can do compared to a brand with $3 million. And I think that when you're a young person and you're seeing, these amazing projects that are out of your scope, you don't have a budget. What's a budget? You're in college, or you're in, even out of college, you could be my age, 30, and just breaking into it. Everyone, there's no clear cut age on when you kind of find your calling. And seeing how people make it is so helpful. Like, for example, like a fake scenario, like let's say you're 20, there's a really talented 20-year-old artist, Joe Howitt. So that he's the example, also sponsored by Joe Howitt on this podcast. You get someone like that, it's like they're doing the VFX, the editing, the coloring, he's the DP, he storyboarded it. He is amazing. And when you can see artists like, big time artists that are revealing how they do things, you can interpret that in your own way. You can say, well, okay, I don't have 5 VFX artists, but I can learn VFX. I can do that, and I think the long term benefit of that is going to be, like from a super nerdy point of view, I think that cost of creativity have just ballooned, absolutely ballooned. And I think that when you've got people that are like, I can wear multiple hats, I think that long term it's going to kind of stabilize how expensive creativity's gotten. And then I think even bigger than that, I think you're going to be having a lot more people embracing that. Like I always like to think about, Like, you know, we have the famous artists of our lifetime and past, but fuck, man, like imagine how many people would have been better than who we have that just didn't have the confidence to jump. You know, like
Yeah.
it's kind of a weird thing to think about, but I think that this is giving so many more people the confidence to jump. And
Yeah.
I think that's the most exciting thing to me is like who is going to be the next big artist that if they hadn't been able to see how creativity was made and learn that way, because, you know, the past of the walled garden, maybe they never would have jumped into it. I think that's exciting.
Yeah.
Man, I love that. Yeah, that's sort of how this this podcast started in a way. Like, just funny anecdote really quick. Like, I have like one thing that's always been on my mind is like, okay, like we in like 2015 came around, and I think that's the year of Back to the Future was supposed to like that was the future year that they came to, and we didn't have like any of that stuff. And I'm like, what if the person who was supposed to make all the cool stuff from Back to the Future or stuff like that just like got distracted or like became like an accountant or something because it was more stable and didn't have like the inspiration or the know-how or like an eye candy to be like, actually, like I saw this industrial engineer like show their process and I really actually want to get into like industrial design. You know what I mean? No, nothing wrong with accounting at all. We all need accountants, but you know what I mean? It's just like you're saying, it's like what are we putting out there? What are the communities we're building, the learning that we're putting out there to lower the barrier to entry for people and democratize creativity and filmmaking and education so that we lower the barrier enough for more people to come in, you know? I think that's really important. Sorry, Des, I cut you off.
No, it's all good. It kind of led me to another thought as well. So as you're like, you're taking this walled garden of creativity and you're just like getting rid of all the walls. Like you're opening everything up. And in general, like folks are like loving it in the comments. Oh, I'm learning so much. This is fantastic. What's been the flip side, right? Have folks been coming at you and saying, yo, you're stealing my technique. Hey, like, why are you doing this? And, you know, how might that negative side of things, like how might that slow this trajectory toward this transparent future that you want to build?
There's absolutely a flip side. I mean, I think the biggest argument I see is like, by sharing these techniques, will it either oversaturate the market with like, are we going to see 100 split diopter shots from, you know, pharma brands? We're going to see really, really sexy pharma brands with like pharma brand commercials with like a split diopter, you know, flash cuts, and then, you know, we do like sure, maybe. I mean, there's always a risk of like, I'd love to see that, by the way. I'd love to see a spicy.
Y'all, they start doing that with Ozempic. I'm gonna be like, hey, sign me up. Let me get 3 of them. You see this shot? This is incredible.
Yeah.
You look at that ad for Ozempic, and I'll look at the one 30 years later. It's like, if you tried Ozempic, you might be qualified for. It's gonna be like mesothelioma ad.
But imagine if that ad was using all of the techniques from eye candy. Then we're really cooking.
Dude, it's like that's like my villain origin story is wanting to get like really sexy pharma ads. No, I mean, my point of view on that is like, it's a bit like AI, where like AI kind of like release the floodgates, and there's a lot of issues with AI, but one benefit is you can be anybody and make anything. You know, it's like you can be my mom can go on AI and she has this great book idea, and she could, you know, say she's like writing children's books, she could illustrate it, you know. Eye candy, I think, is similar to that in its democratizing access to these incredible shots, with one benefit above that to me, which is it's always human. You know, it's like we're saying like, yeah, we're going to democratize access to like this kind of shot, but the person creating it is always going to be an artist. And I think that's nice. I also, it's always like a living in the present thing. Like, again, like I think that if you're, you know, Alfred Hitchcock and you see someone using the dolly zoom, I'm not, you know, quoting him, but your first reaction as a director might be like, oh fuck, someone stole my shot. What the fuck? That never existed before me. You know, but now you think of it and you're like, that is one of the basic techniques, and it's like Inception. Like, well fuck, like the dolly zoom, you know, influenced the double dolly, which is Spike Lee. and that's a Spike Lee shot, but now other people can do that, and so I think it's it's also a present versus future thing. Like it's very easy to be like, if you create a shot, for example, or a technique. And by the way, I'm not saying like to artists, like if you create something, you shouldn't protect it. But, just think about the fact that like, are you creating something, like that you're like, this is mine? Or can you think forward to the future and be like, what if this thing I created becomes like one of the 10 shots, like a dolly zoom or that people use in the future? So I do hear a lot of negative feedback, and it's interesting to hear because I think and I respect it. Like I don't delete comments. People comment it. People, I like iCandy being this messy platform. Like fuck, if you ever go on the Discord, it's like absolutely chaotic, and I love it. I don't even manage it, but I like it being a little bit messy, and I like people having a POV. But my thought to that is it kind of it and no disrespect to anybody listening that has this point of view, but it kind of feels like the old way of thinking, where it's like I think the people that have that argument are also the people that would probably keep their own private library. Because when I was growing up, I sound like I'm like 60. Back in my day, when I was a junior, I was always taught by everybody, you do not share your library with anybody. You will not share it with your friends. You will not share it with your, like that library is your competitive edge. And I think that what this is saying is your competitive edge should never be your techniques. It should be, what you come up with conceptually. If Brian De Palma never did a split diopter, he'd still be Brian De Palma because he writes and directs amazing fucking videos. If Edgar Wright didn't do quick cuts or crash zooms or whip pans in his movies, it'd feel different, but you'd still watch Hot Fuzz. It's a great movie. You know what I mean? Like the technique is, it's almost like the craft on. It's like the Spirit of Ecstasy on the Bentley. It's like Bentley's, right? I'm not a car person. I could have said anything. Rolls Royce.
We're just gonna roll with
Rolls
it.
Royce.
And we don't know.
Dude, none of us are car people.
Yeah.
None of us are car people.
Not car
imagine
guys.
that.
Not car guys. Yeah.
But it's like the Spirit of Ecstasy, like the winged woman on like the Rolls Royce. Like it's like that craft, but like you got to have the structure.
Yeah, no, I love that, and a book that Des and I really love. I pulled it out just before this because I knew what we were talking about, but like Still Like an Artist, right? Like it's you said it well. It's not about like copying as much as it's about like taking something as inspiration and then using it to up level what you're working on, maybe adding something different. And then I know you said earlier that like you're not an expert. Like anybody could have created eye candy. For one, I don't think you're giving yourself enough credit. I do think you are an expert because you've put in your 10,000 hours of searching and scouring and putting things together. And I think that actually something I've said on the pod a few times and something I truly believe is like there's nothing new under the sun as we continue into this social media. What is Web3? This always connected, always on world where everybody's making something, everybody's creating something. There's going to be less and less originality, and the experts are not going to be the creators, they're going to be the curators. And so I think you've put yourself in an expert position by being a curator of all of these shots and all of these angles and techniques to be able to then go and like you've created a library. And I think what we want to do with this podcast is inspire people on what can they go create. And I think what we're showing them by having you on and talking about eye candy is showing them that curation and having a concept, like you said, is the new creation. You know what I mean? It's all about the concept, as you're saying. Like, how can I take these things that, sure, like maybe I borrowed it or maybe I took inspiration from something, but how can I use that to build a product, or in your case, build a library, and then put my own concept around it that's going to help change the world, right? Like you're democratizing filmmaking and being a creator for people, and that's something that you created through curation. So I think like eye candy is such a great example of how you can steal like an artist, but use that to create something that is going to inspire more creativity, more curation, and things that wouldn't have existed before.
Yeah.
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 I always like to say, like, if someone asks, I get a lot of people asking me on iCandy, like, what is inspiration versus, like, theft? And I always say, if someone watches it and then a week later goes, wait, was that this thing? I think that's great. And then the other thing is if you evolve it, like, one of my favorite sneaker designers, like Tinker Hatfield, he famously, like, took the Pompidou in Paris, which is the Inside Out building, and was like, he had an architecture background. You talked earlier about, like, an engineer with creativity, and how many people have you heard in your life say, oh, I'm not a creative. Like, Tinker kind of just was an amazing architecture student at the University of Oregon, and he became a sneaker designer, and guess where he pulled inspiration from? Architecture. And he took the Pompidou from Paris, which, like, in Paris when it was built was protested. If you don't know the building, it's like it's got all of the inner workings on the outside. So it's got all the pipes, the sewage, the electricity, like everything's on the outside. And he took that and he applied it to sneaker design, made the Air Maxes, with the clear bubble, and you could see the inside of the shoe.
Wow.
The brilliance of that too, like I've been to the building. The building is very unique. It's very interesting. But you don't look at it and be like, oh my God, this looks so dope. Whereas you look at the shoes and you're like, man, that's so creative. That's so clever. So I think that goes right back to your point where it's like, nothing in that was theft. Like, it was a reconceptualization that was just like elevating it, man. It's just incredible genius to be able to make that connection.
Yeah, it wasn't like a one-to-one. It wasn't like, an architecture or a designer. It's not like an architect took a building and made a building. It's like it's something completely different. And I think that, going back to, like, visual techniques in filmmaking, I think it's the same thing. It's like, for example, like there's I saw the other day, there's conveyor shots that track on a dolly, like the left or right. And there's pedestal shots, right? And never the two shall mix. You either go up or you go, well, then, and usually pedestal shots are almost like layers. Like, you're, like, imagine the exterior of a building, like, window, up to the next window, up to the next window. I saw an incredible film where it's like, we're going to go on the XY axis and go, it's a conveyor that goes, up to the right. And talking about it, even myself hearing it, it's like, that doesn't sound like exciting. When you watch it, you're like, I've never seen that before. And I think it's cool to see people evolve it. I think Spike doing the double dolly is a great example of that. Like, let's take this dolly zoom effect and then let's also put the person in motion. Like, it's so cool. And I think that when people do that, it creates originality again.
That does take me to the next question though, right? So for this future, right, of filmmaking to be all about transparency, is there any particular advancement or change that needs to happen to facilitate this future, right? Is there like a technological advancement, like new tech that we need for this to come to fruition, or even like a cultural development or a cultural shift that needs to happen for this prediction that you have to come true?
Not technological, I think cultural, but the cool thing about it is that shift's already happening. I just kind of hope to be the one saying, hey, look at this thing that's happening and hop on board. Do you want to be part of the future? Do you want to be, with your little walled garden of shots and sitting sadly on your little island? I think the cultural shift is kind of what we've been talking about. Like, it's people having the confidence to, create something amazing and dissect it for people. It's like, not to go into like another analogy, but when you're like, science wouldn't know shit if they didn't like dissect shit. Like, it's like, you gotta, you have to learn and hundreds of years of science and poking and prodding and like creativity. I don't know if I like the analogy of creativity being like an autopsy, but it is this thing of okay, cool. I can see how you made that. And, and then I think the benefit of, like, obviously science is very, yes and no, it's there's no like middle ground. And so the idea of people taking the same approach to creativity but then being able to kind of allow that to untether themselves versus, science, it's like, oh, now we know what to do. In creativity, you're learning all these cool details, and then you're saying, fuck, man, now I know how to do it, and now by knowing how to do it, I can do whatever I want. That's really exciting.
Yeah. No, I love that. And I feel like a little bit of what we were talking about before maybe is like, what I was saying before about curation, like I don't think people may agree with that. I think people might say like, oh, well, no, if you're going to be a creator, you need to have like this skill set or something. And maybe that's something that needs to change as well. Like maybe people need to have like a mindset that like, you can be a curator, you can be, sort of like an organizer of creative things and still, consider yourself a creator. I feel like that could be potentially like another, I don't know, maybe cultural shift that needs to happen as well.
Yeah, I mean, think about all the artists that like weren't popular in their lifetime and became well known after they were dead. Imagine dying an artist and thinking nobody likes my work, and then 200 years later you're on TikTok. Like it's crazy to think about.
Yeah.
I always tell my team I have an amazing a team on social media that helps me curate and post, and I always tell them it's not about posting what we think people will like. It's about posting what you like, and if people like it, great. If they don't like it, okay. This isn't it's eye candy it shouldn't ever be like the, if it was posted on eye candy, that means it was good work. Or if you're a director and you don't make it on eye candy, you shouldn't think I have bad work. In fact, my message directors or like people is if they send me something and it's not a good fit for me, I'll usually send like, yeah, it's not a good fit. And I'll usually follow up with, but like, fuck me. Like, why don't like, literally like verbatim, like, but fuck eye candy. Like, go to other people. Go, like, don't look at that as like, oh, we didn't get on eye candy. Next time we will. Look at it as, man, eye candy didn't feature us, but we got something even better. We got this channel and we got this channel, and like eye candy is very like selfishly just what I like, and people have liked that. And sometimes I post things and they're flops, and I don't care. Like, it's not like a fuck you thing. It's more of like it would be a dangerous precedent to post things that I think people will like, because then what is like, there's no soul to eye candy. Like you talk about curation earlier, which is funny because eye candy is just it's the Instagram page especially is just it's an online gallery of art. That's what it is, and I'm the curator. I don't make the art. I'm not that talented, but I have this taste to pick what I like. But don't let me be the only voice of like what's good and what's bad. I think it'd be dangerous if that happened. That's why I love, like, I've seen a lot of competitors pop up. I say competitors, but like eye candy doesn't make money, so it's kind of like it's like, sure, like do you fam. But I actually like seeing more people do that. No, seriously. And I love seeing, it's amazing the amount of pages that have started to like copy eye candy. And I think that's all, like, from the bottom of my heart, I think that's great, because there shouldn't be a monopoly on what is good creativity. And because it's so subjective. And that's not an original Jacobi take. There's probably, a billion people that have said that. But I think that's my, it's funny, and not to digress, but you said, like, what's your fear? Or like, what are the challenges with eye candy? Like, what do people say? Nobody says this, but it's probably my biggest internal fear with eye candy, is that it becomes the voice. Like, people are like, because we're gearing up to doing an award show, so we'll do like like rising directors, rising colorists, like best of the year, that kind of stuff. And I want to be able to do that. I want people to feel like they're vindicated, like validated for their work. But the fear is that eye candy becomes like the de facto like metric of success. And I think that I would much rather have people not want to be on eye candy and have a better sight in mind than be like, oh fuck. I get a lot of people that are like, if I like, if their work's not a fit for eye candy, they'll be like, oh, next time. I'm always like, dude, it's a great film. It's an awesome film. Like, go share it. I'll give him like a bunch of people to share it with. Like that's other awesome. Pages to share it with. And there have been times where the work I've told people to share with other pages gets featured on those pages and gets way more likes than it would have gotten on mine. So that's always really rewarding. But that's something I'm very mindful of. It's kind of it's why we have we have a resources page on iCandy, because we don't make money, so it's kind of like I don't care about saying all these other people, but it has like I think 20 other like similar sites that are like, if you don't like us, go to this one, go to that one, there's random ones. There's like a 90s TV website that looks like a TV and you shuffle through the channels. Like it's just kind of like hopefully saying it's not just us. Like shop around.
Yeah. I love that. I love from like a cultural perspective, like kind of painting this picture of like an open-handed sort of just like sharing, almost like an anti-expert take. Obviously, like there will need to be experts, but like you don't have to be an expert to be successful, kind of thing. I do think like maybe I know you said like from a technology standpoint, no. I do want to say though, like there are some like some apps and platforms like Arena that are doing some like great things from a curatorial standpoint that are like not social media platforms, but they're like places where you can save. It's almost like the old Tumblr. Again, you know what I mean? Like, but I do feel like the more ability we have, and then maybe the more apps and more platforms we have to like make our own libraries that then become public, could potentially be like a technological advancement that continue to like push the future of filmmaking and the future of content creation to be more about transparency as well.
Yeah, I love that, and that's. We recently did launched a new website, and that's one of the features on it is, you can save to a board, you can create an account, you can save directors.
Oh, nice.
You can basically like if you want to, create a board for an upcoming shoot, you can actually do that now. The one thing that blows my mind is I will see like influencers share iCandy, and the number one comment will be, "Oh man, why'd you share this? This was like something I was holding on to." I was like, don't gatekeep iCandy. That's not the move. That's some Inception level like thinking. Creating a resource to it's anti-gatekeeping, and then people find it and they're like, "I'm gonna gatekeep this."
I'm gonna gatekeep it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's like in an era of like AI, right? Like where you think of you have to give it your exact search terms. I think that iCandy is a technological advancement in that it's actually going backwards, where it's like, dude, it's, when you go on Pinterest, you can search things. You go on Tumblr, you can search things. When you go on iCandy, yes, you can search now, but it's still just like a plonk, good luck, and I think that people like that.
Yeah.
And if they don't, it sucks, because that's what they get.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay, cool. So let's say that everything we're talking about happens, filmmaking becomes a lot more transparent. What does filmmaking and just like creativity in general, what does that look like in 3 years?
I think that hopefully at that point you see a lot more young artists that are able to do big things. And in doing that, you have a lot more brands willing to take a risk on young artists. We're in my experience, it's hard to take a risk on young directors and editors, and if they don't have experience or history or a team around them. And I think as directors and artists and brands and all these different entities start to see more and more raw young talent that are kind of uninhibited by the traditional like 50 crew sets and all that kind of stuff, I think you're gonna be seeing a lot more brands taking a risk on it, and I think you're gonna see a lot more people taking a risk on themselves, which is cool. And that's the thing, like a lot of young artists, that's what they've done. Like they've created work for themselves. They're doing for $15,000 what what a massive company couldn't do for like triple that. And as I fall back in my chair here, and then and I think that brands will start to go, okay, let's take a risk, which is exciting because people are very risk averse right now. Like, not even talking about brands, just people, the mindset. Like, especially in the States, right? It's the suing country of the world, and everyone is very risk averse. I think you can feel that, and the people that aren't risk averse, especially, and like the work that I find the most interesting is music videos, which consequently is also the work that you rarely see, the conceptual side of it. Yeah. And I think we're starting to find is like conceptual music videos, which is really cool. You've got like Dave Meyers is a pro at that, even like Cole Bennett, and there's just all these artists that, they look great, they look awesome, but they're also like, they had a concept, cool, that was awesome, it had a thread, it had a common element, and I think that if there's people that aren't risk adverse, it's music video directors, and I think that's why I try to like embody them in my own work, and I think that you're going to see a lot more, hopefully, fingers crossed, you see a lot more brands and directors and artists and all of these people starting to look through the lens of not what could go wrong and instead like, let's take a risk. Because, that looking back at 50 years of creativity, that's what creativity used to be. It used to be all of these incredible risks that, like, how many times have you heard someone say, that wouldn't get approved today? It's hopefully this can change that mindset, because when you have these people, this is a full circle moment. Are you ready? Because when you have those people that have the confidence to now enter the creative field that aren't like held down by this baggage. By the way, I have that baggage. Like it's just something that when you grow up in the industry and go through it, you have it. If you're someone that doesn't have that background, but suddenly you have the confidence to like try things yourself and do it your own way, then I think we're going to start seeing a lot more work in the next 3 years that's like really inspiring and brave, and a lot of work that will fail. Like there's going to be work that tanks, just horrible, stupid techniques, just I'll probably make half of them, and I think that in itself is exciting because you don't see work that fails today. You just see work that kind of rides the line. I think that would be like my dream. And 3 years is interesting because I would say it might take longer than that, but and it's a cycle. I think it's not like eye candy is going to change the world. I think it's going to, hopefully, me alongside all of the incredible directors that are being more transparent are going to create this bubble, of this trajectory of what I just talked about.
Yeah.
But then 4 years down the line, it'll kind of reset, and it's always a constant, ebb and flow. We've just been, going down a little bit for a long time.
Yeah. Man, I love everything that we've covered today. Starting kind of with the central premise that you have around, the future of filmmaking, and even more broadly, the future of creativity is all about transparency and what that does. It kind of, lowers the barrier to entry or lowers the gates so that everyone can learn from one another and, take from this element or take from that industry and apply it to what you've got going on. I think really at the core of all of that for the folks listening as well is that like when you move in transparency, and that's like a guiding belief for you, it also builds up that creative confidence, right? Because you're not hiding anything, you're not pretending to be someone else. It's just straight up like, yo, I got this idea from Jacobi and it's amazing, and here's how I flipped it. Or, hey, I shot this film and here's the 3 folks that really helped me to bring it together. So as you were saying, I think a big thing there is it just kind of like lifts everyone as they climb, and hopefully just pushes us all forward to a future of creativity that's not just transparent but truly collaborative, so that just more voices can be heard in aggregate.
Yeah, it's like if you can be more compassionate about the people around you and realize that like life is short, fuck legacy, like fuck that kind of stuff because you're gonna be dead. Like why does it matter? So just like be compassionate to those around you as they go about their own journey. I think that's like the win, when directors are sharing their work, they're not gaining anything from that. You're not gaining. If anything, it's hurting you because now a competitor's like, oh man, we paid $30,000 for a giant arc shot rig that goes. He did it with a cardboard blah blah blah, like a PVC pipe. So you're not helping yourself. It's truly a selfless act, and I think that's awesome. And I think that compassion it's a bit like, you pay for, like someone at the drive-through, the person behind you, and it's like, how long will that go on for? Yeah. It's like, it's a bit like that, where you're like, you have these artists that kind of started that, which not me. I'm like third in line behind the first one. And then now because of that artist, because of that artist, because of me, because now this person, and then because of them, that's the cool thing to see, is like the reaction.
Yeah. The future will be one big pay it forward line, and I love that. Thank you for bringing us one step closer to that. No, but for real, Jacobi, thank you so much for your time. This was a great conversation. I think it'll be inspiring to a lot of people. Please tell people where they can find you and what you have coming up next.
Cool. Yeah, you can find me in Portland. I'm usually here. I travel a lot for shoots, so you can find me in LA. If you want to pay for travels, I'll go wherever you want me to go. And what I got coming up is we'll continue building the website. We're up to almost, I think, 1,500 clips on it, and the old website had 10,000. And it is literally me, one by one, manually tagging, and the director, the DP, the cinematographer, the colorist, everybody. It's a long process, but one I enjoy. So look in the next weeks. The website's going to continue to get more fleshed out, and then we'll probably be doing an award show. I think we're just going to do like a shock drop, like with the sneakers. I don't even think we're going to have people apply for it. I think we're just going to, in our first year doing it, just our team will go through and just pick our favorites, and then I think in the future we'll do like an entry and all that kind of stuff. But yeah,
that's dope. Awesome.
Very dope.
Dope. All right. Well, everybody, thank you again for tuning into Tools for Time Traveling. It's been a great conversation. If you heard anything in here that you like or were inspired by, please, follow us or subscribe to us wherever you're listening to this. Share it with some people, and most importantly, let that inspiration flow and maybe develop into something that you can build. If this is exciting for you, then how do we get to a more transparent future? If you have an idea for how to do that, go on and do it. Let us know that you did it. But more importantly, let's keep building the future that we want to see. All right. Peace.
Thanks.
Cool.